let's go ahead and start at 6:01. There goes the hammer. Joe, would you like to do the Pledge of Allegiance? Can you lead?
Sure. Ready, start. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, City Clerk, would you like to do a roll call?
Councilmember Castillo?
Here.
Councilmember Dane?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Here.
Mayor Welty?
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Can we have a closed session report? City Attorney?
You absolutely can, Mayor. There are no items to report out of closed session today.
Okay, we're moving on to the business. Do we have any public comment?
Mayor, we have one public speaker tonight, Mr. Joe Washley.
This is when you get to the budget.
We usually, can we move it? We'll move it to the budget, but I think that's,
I guess that's not up first, right?
no, we have one item up in front of that. So once, we'll bring you up for your 3 minutes at that point. Okay. We have a business item. City Manager Brown, would you like to present the memorandum of understanding with the
I would, thank you, Mayor.
firefighters?
Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council, I am pleased to present this item to you today and request the adoption of resolution number 2024-16, approving the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, by and between the City of Canyon Lake and Canyon Lake Firefighters Association, or CLFA. This will be a 3-year term. The agreement will begin 7/1/2024. There will be a 10% increase for all represented members on the first pay period on or after July 1, 2024. Thus, after 2025, there will be a 3.5% cost of living adjustment and a 2026 cost of living adjustment. Additionally, we're requesting that the work down obligations be removed so that when you have a captain filling in an overtime, they're remaining at their captain rate. CLFA also requested, if there was any type of additional revenue that was formally approved, that they have the ability to retain an opener. The first written request to reopen negotiations would be made no earlier than March 1st, 2025, and no later than March 30th, 2025. The second one would be March 1st, 2026, and no later than March 31st, 2026. There would not be a third because, in theory, we would be working on a successor MOU during that time. The terms solidify the City Council's ongoing support and continued value that will be received by the residents and businesses of Canyon Lake. I think it also is a big deal that the cost continues to represent a substantial savings over the cost of contracted services. I think it is very important to highlight that the decision that council made to go to the city's own fire department has led to what we would all reference as value. You are at this point getting more for less. You're getting members of the neighborhood who live back there, who spend a minimum of 24 hours in that firehouse, who are participating in every event, who are, and several of them are friends and neighbors. With this also, the city would expect to meet and confer for a successor MOU beginning around January of 2027, with a current expiration of this contract should be approved by council today of June 30th, 2027. The MOU is very light, and what we have right now, what they have requested is that we would continue to work on non-monetary items. So in the resolution, I am requesting that council grant me the opportunity to work with them to kind of continue to fashion that, which are really going to have different effects based on fire policies, fire procedures, and we're going to point to those items. But again, it will not be anything that is monetary in any way. And that is the conclusion of my report. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to take them now.
Can you give an example of non-monetary items?
Absolutely. So, perfect example is we've got an item coming up that is the violence in the workplace policy. There's one that will be provided to council for adoption for the city side and one for the fire side. So in that MOU, we will have some type of reference to the policies and procedures that they may have. We've got one example where in the recent past, we had to sign kind of a side agreement that allowed them to have somebody in a working capacity. That was not considered in any of the policies or procedures. That would be in the MOU saying somebody could move up into a working position and how we handle those things.
I have a few comments, Mr. Mayor, if I may. I just want to simply say, thank you to the gentleman that showed up tonight on behalf of our fire department. This has been a crazy road. It's been 2.5 years, going on 3 years for this department standing. And before we moved in this direction, everyone told us no, and they told us how we could not and what we should do. And you guys have continued, in my opinion, to go above and beyond. And I just simply want to say thank you through the leadership of obviously Chief and Chief Samuels. You guys continue to knock it out of the park. And I know for this council, going through this process and just talking about some of the things that have been done in our community, it is clear as day that our service has increased substantially. And I just want to say thank you for that. This council, from what I can tell, especially myself, is 100% committed to this department and the longevity of this department. And I think it's important that we continue to do the good work that we're doing in the community. So for that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other comments?
Yeah. I would just like to say how much I support the job that you guys have done. As you go throughout our community, I can't tell you how many people are proud to say that we have our own fire department. And I think that was the thought at the very, very beginning. You guys have done nothing but exceed the expectations of this council, of me personally. And I gotta say thank you for the job that you're doing. And I think when we vote, what we're voting on is that we have all the confidence in the world that you are going to continue to exceed our expectations. You are a great fire department, and you should be very proud of the job that you have done over the past 2.5 years. So thank you.
I would echo what Mark said, but I would also say I'm impressed by how quickly an agreement was reached. And I think that speaks to both sides wanting to do the best for each other in the community. And so rather than dragging this out, moving forward is the best option, and I'm very grateful.
I just want to thank the firefighters for what they did for us and have done for us in the last year. You always hear negotiation, and you always feel there's a big table with warring parties on each side of the table, and that's a negotiation. And made me very sad to think that might happen. And I'm so pleased that it was a team effort, and we all came together and looked about how we could make the fire association and the fire department even better and provide for your concerns and your needs. So I just want to say thank you guys for coming to the table kind of with willingness to listen, and thank City Manager for also his willingness to listen to the fire association. So thank you very much. Appreciate everything all you guys have done. Get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilmember Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Dane?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Terry?
Aye.
Mayor Welty?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next up is going to be a discussion of the city's draft fiscal budget for 24-25. Terry, Mr. Shea, would you like to come up? Terry's our finance director. Hold on one second, I forgot that Joe wanted to make a public comment.
I got a couple questions. If I can get up.
Am I live? I haven't been to one of these meetings in probably 5 years. I used to come every single month when we had a bad group of people sitting up there. And so I was here to fight with them. But things have been going pretty good, and I said, well, there's no need for me to be there. I just have a few questions, and it's got to do with the budget. And our property taxes, how do they figure how much we get? Let's say I pay $6,000 a year for property taxes, and maybe 1,000 of it is the garbage stuff, like garbage, and different other things, EMS, et cetera. What percentage do we receive? Do you know?
I think hopefully Terry will cover some of this
Okay.
when he comes forward.
Okay, my next question is, right after property taxes in the budget on income, we have property taxes dash fire. What is that? Does anybody know?
Again, I think, when Terry does his presentation,
Okay.
hopefully he'll kind of address
Well,
those
and
issues.
Gary, I was also going to ask, what's the VLF swap under property taxes? Where's that money come from? It's my curiosity. Now, one of your things there, we said we're decreasing the amount of money we should receive from the utility tax. And I'm wondering, I think it was about 200,000 or 100 and some odd thousand from the previous year. Why would that decrease? In other words, utilities don't decrease, and that's just another question I have. The interest on our investments has gone up 172,000, or going to, which I think is great. But I was wondering what category in this budget is it under? There's nothing for interest in the category. And the other question is, how much money do we have in reserves? The other question is, how much of the budget is going into the reserves? I don't see it as an expense item.
We're coming up on our 3 minutes, so this is, you have the opportunity to call, if all your questions aren't
Yeah.
answered in the presentation, feel free to call in, and you can come down, and the city manager or Terry will assist you with your questions. So you, as a citizen, you're free to come on up, and we can walk you through some of that.
And Mayor, I will say the vast majority of the questions that I heard will be answered by the presentation that our finance director is about to do. I'm willing to throw some pressure on him and say he's dynamic enough to add that in as well to answer some of those questions.
Good.
If not, we'll find out together that he's not.
Okay. You got to stop speaking poorly of him, okay?
Never would happen.
Thank you.
Good evening, Your Honorable Mayor, City Council, staff. Very good questions. I'm glad somebody read the budget. That makes me happy. First question is, when you first incorporate, the county develops a rate that you get based on your cost from a study. And I think ours is like 4.5% of the 1%, of the $1 we get, just 4.5% for the city. The VLF was a thing when the state was in trouble a few years back. Motor vehicle license money used to be our biggest revenue source, and then the governor kind of shifted it. And he came up with this VLF swap where he swapped money and guaranteed these payments. And it's like a property tax that goes up every year by about 4 or 5%. What was your other questions?
Well, and to make sure I'm clear on that as well, it's, when we say 4.5%, it is 4.5 pennies for every $1.
Every dollar.
That is what we get. So the 4.5% often sounds great.
Yeah, the
until
rest
you
goes
understand
to the
it.
county and to the school districts and other special districts. The fire structure fee was a fee that's been in place at the city since the city incorporated it, and that's based on your property tax bill, and that's for fire protection services. In the first 15 years of the city, we never received the money. The county would use it to offset the fire costs, and then they would either bill us at the end of the year, or we'd have a credit carry forward. And so that's what the fire structure fee is. And there's about 6 cities that have that in Riverside County. Eastvale has it. I think Aruba Valley has it. It's more of the cities that incorporated a little later that have that fire structure fee to pay for fire. Interest went up because we had a bunch of interest rates during the slow time that were at 0.3, 0.1, and we replaced them all with 4.5%, 5%. We just purchased a T-bill for 5.5%, and so that's why the interest rates went up. We went from 0.3 all the way up to 5%. So those are the big reasons there. And any other questions you have, feel free. So
How much money in the reserve?
that's on page number.
I just picked up a few things going through there.
I appreciate you looking at it. So the general fund, we're going to anticipating having just a little below 7 million in the reserves. The special revenue fund's just a little bit below 3 million, and then in our capital project fund, about 338,000. So a little over 10 million in reserves. So, all right, do I get to carry on then? I passed.
Where is that money in the budget? What category?
Can I show you later?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, thank you guys for being here. This is a budget workshop for the fiscal year 24-25 budget. The proposed budget has general fund revenues of $8,420,000, which is about $893,000 higher than the prior year of $7,527,000. Proposed general fund expenditures are $8,266,348, which is an increase of $731,000 over the previous fiscal year budget amount of $7.5 million. And proposed has general fund revenues over expenditures of about $155,000. So the biggest revenues I listed here, which are property taxes, the fire structure, the VLF, sales tax, utility users, franchise fees, other taxes, and then fees for services, and then other revenues. Property taxes, which we just explained. So any questions on any of these revenue sources? Sure, I will definitely. So property taxes are projected to increase by about $102,000. Higher assessed values, and I base this on our 23-24 projections. So I think we're going to be a little bit higher than that. We've been growing about 4 to 5% a year. Real property transfer tax, that's when you sell your property. That's a tax you pay to the county. We're below last year's estimate, and with the housing prices and the interest rates, housing has kind of stopped selling. So we're going to have a decrease in that. The fire structure fee is to increase by about $236,000, and that's higher values. And then I based it on the actual projections for 22-23, or the actual for 22-23, and then where I think we're going to be at 23-24. So we're going to go up by about $236,000. The VLF swap, we get that twice a year, and it's basically considered a property tax. And it's been growing about 5% a year, and so I think we're going to be about $101,000 over that. Utility users is projected to decrease by about $262,000. The EMS subscription fee is going to increase by about $454,000 based on the new annual fee that the council adopted, and that's going to increase by about $454,000. Investment earnings, which I just explained, are going to be up around $170,000 over the prior year. which is due to more favorable rates, so. Any questions on any of these major revenue sources?
I have a question. We seem to be dependent on property values staying stable or rising.
Yes, sir.
And some Prop 13 step-ups.
Correct.
But, we do have some vulnerability on the property value side in the future?
You always do when your revenue sources are tied like that. During the recession, the county lowered people's values. Canyon Lakes were less than most of the surrounding communities, just a nicer area, and so that we got hit a lot less. And then the county will then jump them back up once the economy turns around and the values go back up. They don't grow by the 1%, then they go back up to their original values. So, but yeah, you're always susceptible to property tax values. So that's why we tried to diversify with like the EMS and the UUT and get some other stable, more stable revenue sources in the last few years. So
And the UUT is declining.
yes, I don't know if I can say the reason, but it has declined. So.
I don't think it's a secret.
Okay.
Go for it.
We were sued for the UUT on the water and the sewer, and that's about $350,000 a year, and that's what I lowered the estimate by that $350,000.
So, council, as you all know, but just for the edification of the public, a taxpayer lawsuit was filed against portions of the city's utility user tax that relate to water and sewer. This is a tax that was approved twice by the voters of Canyon Lake, the second time by an overwhelming margin. I think it was 70+%. Nevertheless, a taxpayer law firm out of San Diego that previously had unsuccessfully challenged our EMS subscription program has attempted to argue that the voters of this city may not constitutionally tax water and sewer utility service, even though it's a common tax. It's in hundreds of cities and counties throughout the state. The trial court in Riverside County agreed with the plaintiffs, and it is currently up on appeal, the Court of Appeal in California State Court. We're hopeful that that decision will be overturned. If it is, then the money can flow back into your budget. But I think that because of the lower court ruling against the city, I think it's only prudent to assume that that revenue is not available. We're likely going to be sequestering. We're still collecting the money right now. We're likely going to be sequestering it, though, just in case there's a need to engage in a claims process.
Yeah, we are currently, since the date of the judgment, we're not recording the money as a revenue and keeping it as a liability on our balance sheet till we figure it out. So, any other questions on the revenue sources, on our major revenue sources? So here's the pie kind of on our, you can see how we're dependent on the property tax VLF, the fire structure fee, and then the EMS, utility users tax, franchise tax are like Edison, SoCalGas, CR&R, and then sales and use tax. It's gone up a little this last quarter, so I think we'll be up even more than the estimate based on, we just had a meeting with HDL last week, and so I think we're going to see more there, maybe get it up to the 450 range. User fees are just what they say, like the building and planning department fees for services. And then the interest this year you can actually see on the pie chart, so that's good. So. And then this is all the funds here. So we have the gas tax funds, which is money that comes in to maintain our roads. And we also have the Measure A, which is the, I think it's a half-cent sales tax in Riverside County, and that's also for road maintenance. The AQMD Trust, which is money when you license your cars, a portion goes to AQMD, and then we get about $15,000 to $16,000 a year, and we usually spend that money on vehicles and we accumulate it for a few years. Then we have the law enforcement grant. That's guaranteed $100,000 a year, but it goes up every year a little. This year we ended with 168, and I think it'll be up to 190 next year. This is the remaining money of the ARPA. That's what we have left after this year is $149,000. The enterprise fund, that's our rental buildings. We're currently negotiating or getting into new lease agreements with each one of the tenants. And then we have a capital projects fund, which is where the HSIP grant, the highway safety improvement money, is going to get spent right there. And that's what that revenue is. That
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. In regards to rental funds, looking at our properties and assets, have we done a calculus on where we're currently at with what's owed, what we believe the appraisal rate would be on those particular parcels, the new one being the fire station? Have we looked at that?
I have not. I mean, we had them looked at by the insurance company, and they set our rates, but, I mean, that's something we could find out if we need to.
Yeah.
We need to, once we get those buildings remodeled and put in place, we need to have another survey done as to what the marketability of the value would be renting it out, so we can come up with the new value, so.
Terry, I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah, on the sales tax, what percentage, what is it, 725 or something, and what percentage does the city get back?
The city gets the Bradley Burns portion of the Bradley Burns, which is 6%. We get 1% of the 6%.
So essentially, we get 1% of the 6%. And how does the delivery, Amazons, et cetera?
It goes into the county pool, and we get a portion of that pool.
Do you think we get our 1% out of that pool, or do you think?
That's hard to say, so, yeah. But, I mean, it goes up and down, and that's one of our bigger ones, is that pool allotment, so.
One of the bigger fluctuations we
Yeah.
have is that.
Outside of that pool, you also, Mayor, you have what changed about 2 years ago, somewhere in that neighborhood, I think it was 21, where, let's just use Amazon, that's one that everybody knows. Their corporations may exist as a subcorp in an individual city. So if you've got a point of sale location, that city actually takes the bulk of the sales tax from that point of sale. It's when you're buying from your house, it goes into the pool he's talking about, but there is a big sales tax portion that goes to the individual cities that have those point of sale, typically warehouses in them. We saw cities go from $8 million a year to $32 million a year with that change. So there is currently numerous cities that do not have those point of sale warehouses in them that have kind of united and are trying to find a way to have that all go to a pool. But that's going to be a fight between those individual cities, and it's going to be a long one.
Yeah, I've been to a few meetings at the league, and there's some, yeah.
So we're not getting our normal share of sales tax by any stretch of the imagination on these outside deliveries.
I mean, normal is hard to gauge, but with those, when you buy it, wherever that warehouse is of the point of sale, where it's coming from, is getting the bulk of that sales tax.
And not us, but yes.
That's correct.
Ask a question too. I'm back on the rental fund. Shouldn't it be going up from this year, since we have more buildings that are rented?
They are vacant, Councilmember. We're working on that diligently.
Okay.
And Kayla
I
has
thought we had
prepared
some.
a cash
Okay.
flow, so we can see where we're at and
Okay.
kind of figure out where we're going and
Thanks.
what we need, so. And then, this is the general fund by department. So we have city council, total 182,000. We have city attorney, 156,000. City manager, 876. City clerk, 327. Finance, 434, and then building and facilities, which is the insurance for the buildings, all the maintenance and all that stuff goes in there, the utilities, all that goes into that. And then the debt service on the new fire station is also there. Then we have developmental services, which includes planning, building and safety, public works, NPDES, and the code enforcement. And we have each one of their budgets of 335, 431,000 for building. Public works is 20,000. The NPDES is 154, and then code enforcement of 440. And then we have our public safety departments, which is law enforcement, which is Riverside County Sheriff, our own fire department. Then we have emergency preparedness, and then animal control. And that gets us to our $8.2 million.
Mayor, I have a question if I could. Terry, when I look at the law enforcement for the 1.858, 170, 5,000 of capital, are we doing anything that offsets? So we have the grant you were talking about, is ARPA
Yeah.
playing into that? So
I
our amount is higher than
I
the
have
one.
that in a couple slides down.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight that
Yes, yes.
this is what is being, this is what is going to the general fund as an expenditure, that is not
Right.
the cost of what we're
Right,
doing.
right, yeah. So I tried to, you can see we spent about 51% of our money on public safety, which is normal. Most cities are anywhere from 50 to 75% public safety. So Stephen wishes it was city attorney, but no. Then he wouldn't have to work as hard. So I'm going to go each department and stop me at any time and just the changes. And so city council went up 9,550. We added 2,000 for youth and government, which is, Cheryl explained some things she wanted to include in that and have like one line item for that. And then we have 5,000 in increased video production costs, an increase of $2,300 in the WRCOG solid waste. A while back, the council voted that they could take raises in January, and that money's not in here. But the impact, if all five took it, would be about $56,000 a year difference. So, but if, we'll see who takes it in January or doesn't, and then we'll mid-year adjustment that. City attorney, his rates went up a little, so for general attorney services, it's up 16,000, but we had a ton in there last year for code enforcement, didn't spend hardly any of it. So this year I lowered it to 32,000, and those are usually reimbursable. So whenever we get a code enforcement case, we'll bring a budget adjustment for the amount and then the estimated revenue that we'll recollect, so. City manager increased by 15,000, and we have a $110,000 increase in salaries and benefits. We're still paying the former city manager through October or November. We did a $25,000 decrease in the community survey, $39,000 decrease in the economic development consultant, $20,000 decrease in government relations, and we eliminated the contingency of 25. And then we added 7,000 in conference that's based on actual cost and a better estimate. I think the city manager wanted to comment on some of these items.
It did. Mayor and council, many of these items I requested to have removed, not because they're not needed items, but when you're a city of our size, sometimes you just need to roll up your sleeves and do some of these things. And frankly, we just didn't have the money to outsource some of this right now. And both I and the members of the staff will be taking on these roles. I'm very confident that the plans we have in place, the vision the council has, will be able to do these without paying a third party, frankly. So not that they're not needed items, not that they're not important items, but we need to find a way to do more with less.
Thank you.
Any questions on this department? City clerk increased by about a little over 70,000. 50,000 is the cost of the estimated cost of the election to be held in November. And then 20,000 to look into purchasing agenda software. And then $7,500 decrease for the military banner program. And then the projected raises, or once staff has a 3.5% COLA, and then a merit increase after they get a review. That's a good review.
Just a comment on the merit. The merit is, where I come from, it's called the step increase.
step increase,
So
yeah.
as soon as a staff member reaches the end of the steps, then
Right.
they no longer get the 5%.
They just get the cost of living.
They
at
just
that
get the
point.
cost of living.
Right.
So it's not every employee every year
Right.
gets 5%. So this is not like a way to hide an 8% raise. It's an 8%
Yeah.
function of how government works. Yeah. Thank you.
And additionally on that, Mayor, the reason it is a merit increase is because it is not a foregone conclusion. It is required that you have a meets on your review to be able to get that merit increase. So in the event that somebody did not meet those expectations, they would not be entitled to a step increase. Fortunately, we have an exceptional staff and don't have those issues, but I wanted to make sure we clarified why it's a merit.
And we're going to go to their anniversary date instead of everybody starting July 1, so. And then finance, which I know I said last year is the best department. I think it still is. So same thing, staff, 3.5% COLA, and then a merit increase if they meet the needs. 5,000 increase in the CalPERS unfunded liability, and we have no control over that. We just get a number from CalPERS. With Kayla going out on maternity leave for a few months, we're going to need some help in the HR. So we have an HR consulting firm that the council hired about 3 years back. We have like an annual contract not to exceed, so we've increased that to 10,000. And then additional help with payroll while Kayla's out. That would be way too much for Liz to do. We found a very competent person to help us, and she's going to do great. And then 4,000 increase in the annual audit this year. Because we spent over 750,000 of the ARPA money, we're required to have a single audit this year, which is a federal grants audit, and that's why that went up to the 5,000. Any questions on the finance? Planning, expenditures increased by 104,000. We have a $180,000 increase for sphere of, I can't say that word, sphere of influence study. 35,000 increase for environmental justice requirements. We eliminated the decrease for the zoning ordinance digitizing, and then a lot of that 95,000 in there was for the housing element, which is hopefully done. So, any questions on planning? And then building and safety. So same thing with the staff. A 25,000 increase for adding a part-time position. They brought someone on to help with some of their filing, and then they want to keep her for the next year. A $20,000 increase for state mandated costs for developing an ADU design templates. And then our software for receipts and bill, it went up. So they took a $4,500 increase in the iWorks costs.
I have a question. This department's somewhat self-supporting in that the permit fees and the plan
Yes.
check fees and everything else go in, so that's not something that comes out of the general, so much the general fund as it comes out of kind of a cost recovery process.
Yeah, it's almost all paid for by user fees, so, yeah. And then law enforcement, this is what city manager was referring to a minute ago. So it increased by 1,234,000, but last year we transferred 1,285,000 was paid from ARPA money, and we in turn made that same transfer over to the capital project fund to be used for the city hall remodel or the council chambers remodel. And so that's why it's a little bit higher this year. And then also offsetting that cost is $99,470. So the actual increase to the contract amount was just under 100,000, and we're going to offset 224,000 of CalCOPS money because we have about 30,000 in reserve this year, and then the remaining ARPA money we're going to spend 80,000 to cover that. So about 304,000 of the sheriff's costs will be offset by the CalCOPS and the remaining ARPA money. So. And then the fire department. It's a $262,000 increase in salary and benefits, $5,500 increase for emergency response equipment, $20,500 increase for EMS enhancement expenditures, but we get reimbursed, or we get money from AMR every year, and that's what we're budgeting is the revenue we think we're going to get from AMR for the system enhancement fees. And then $10,000 decrease in training and education cost. Any questions on the fire?
I've got the next slide, if
Okay.
you want to go to that one. So one of the things I asked for from Jessica Sanchez that she was able to research for us is, I really wanted to know if we didn't go to Canyon Lake Fire Department, what would it look like right now? And she kind of looked at all of the areas around us. There's a conservative number of if everything really went perfect and all we ever saw was the 2.9% increase. That's what you see in the green there. So even if it was only a 2.9% increase, you would see a higher cost the city would be paying for the contract services. We know that 2.9 is extremely conservative. So she took the average of every increase around us that average was 14.5%. So if you look at that blue all the way to the right, that is about where we would anticipate being in that 2025 year with all of the changes that are coming. And many people know the 66-hour work week and the additional, I think they already went to 4 for each engine. This is just, again, hypothetical, trying to look at the two scenarios of the most conservative and an average of everything around. And just, it was one more time for me to see the absolute win that the city did before I got here, and that it just continues to pay off. With that said, there were some items that the fire department did request that I did not put in here. We'll certainly look at where we're at in the mid-year budget to come back. There were very important items like $25,000 for some still water training. It was very important. It was very clear from council that we wanted to do what we could with this budget to also make sure there was, to make sure I don't use the S word and Terry throws things at me, revenues over expenditures that we could have at the end of the year that go into the reserve. And so that was very important. So we will look at that when we come mid-year to see if there's a way to present that to you. Additionally, the kitchen remodel in the station, that was one of the things that was left. That's something that we'll look at that time. So I really wanted council to know there are things all throughout this budget that we looked at and said, what do we have to have? We're at that point in the budget where we need to look at the have-tos, what's going to bring us additional revenue, what's going to keep everything running, and then what are the things that would really be nice to have, and then we kind of put those in a category to bring to you mid-year if that's where we're at. If there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, I'll turn it back over to Terry.
Yeah, that top line is a little scary.
It's very scary.
All right, so animal control, we don't have a final budget yet, but Councilmember Dane says they're working on it, and we should have it, and then if there's major adjustments, we'll bring those at mid-year. This was based on preliminary numbers, and our costs are based on animal counts for all the cities involved, and so we have a lower animal count, then we get lower fees, and so that's why it's down a little this year. So. NPDES, which is probably the biggest waste of money ever. No, just kidding. Up $20,000, basically status quo, but our consultants will then do all our reporting and monitoring and go to the meetings, and that they have asked for a $20,000 increase. Code enforcement expenditures increased by about $41,000. $37,000 is increased salary and benefits. Staff receiving a 3% COLA and a possible merit increase, and then they have a portion of the iWorks also, and that's their portion of the cost for the iWorks. And then we have building and facilities. Utilities have been going up, so there's about a $5,000 increase in utilities, a $13,000 increase in furniture and fixtures and fire station upgrades for equipment that each department might need. The biggest one is $112,000 in principal and interest payments on the POA loan for the fire station. That's the biggest part of the $145,000. And our insurance only went up, which they went up dramatically last year, only went up about $4,000 this year. So hopefully, and those aren't final numbers either yet, right, Cheryl? We should get better numbers? Or?
From PERMA?
Yeah. Are those final?
They are not final.
Okay, those are not final. So this is expenditure summary by fund. So we have the general fund, the gas tax, Measure A, AQMD. Nothing budgeted for AQMD right now. We usually accumulate that money for 3 or 4 years till we have enough money to buy a vehicle. Law enforcement grants, which is, we budget that for law enforcement, so that comes in, and then we allocate a portion of the sheriff's contract to that. That's the $224,000 we talked about earlier. The miscellaneous grants, ARPA, that's what's left in the ARPA fund, and some of that is going towards the sheriff's contract. And capital project fund, that's the project for the HSIP grant, $1,207,000. So this is our estimated fund balances. So I think at the end of the year, we'll end up with $6.9 million in the general fund, gas tax fund of about $1.2 $224,000. Measure A, we actually spent some this last year on the painting project, which was nice. $1,573,000. HQMD, we're at about that point now where we have enough money to get a vehicle. So $83,000. The law enforcement grants, try to spend every dime we take in that, offset the sheriffs. And then the miscellaneous grants, there was money left in there from our PEG has to be used for equipment for televising. And so that's $15,000 that's left from our original PEG grant of $32,000. The rental fund, $91,000, and that includes interest on the interfund loan, which we pay the general fund. And then the capital projects, that's the money for the remodel. Any questions on any of these funds and how they work? Questions for staff?
We're seeing the budget projections for this year. Can you give us the crystal ball vision of the next couple of years, where we're going, where we're at?
When I did the 5-year projection, it wasn't rosy, you know what I mean? Like you said earlier, a lot of staff will hit the top step here within 2 years. So we won't see this 8.5% raises, 3.5% raises. But with costs the way they're going up, it's going to be tight, so the next few years.
So in the next few years, do you anticipate our revenues increasing the same rate of the expenditures, or do you anticipate the expenditures?
Increasing over revenues, so, you know.
So this is a good year, and it may not be so good in the next couple of years then?
I think we're good for this year and next year. I think when it goes further out, costs, assessed values are going up. If interest rates ever go down, houses start moving and changing. The building department is doing, gangbusters right now, and they're providing quite a bit of funds. And, back in the 80s or 2000s, we were doing $400,000 or $500,000 a year. Then it dropped to like $200,000. Now they're back up to over $500,000. So, I think we're good for this year and next year. But with inflation, costs are going up quite a bit, so.
If I could jump in there as well, Mayor. I think there's a lot of dynamics right now. What Terry was talking about was some of our revenues. We've got risk on both sides, like you said. The interest rates could turn around. We could see more sales. We could see property values go up. We could see revenue raise. We could see it stagnate, not see any of the growth. So it's kind of one or the other. My biggest concern is the expenditures. The expenditures, to me, frankly, the law enforcement contract, we just don't know. It's not like you have a forecast where the sheriff's department is able to tell you next year it's going to be 3% and the following year it's 4%. It's whatever number we get. And that's not a comfortable place to be in, because as you saw with what was happening with the Riverside County Fire contract, that number could grow in a way that is just not sustainable. And I don't want to speak light of it. I want to make sure it's a big enough deal that I'm saying it. If that growth stays the way we've seen over the last several years, it just is not sustainable. And so when people come to me and ask me what my single biggest concern is, every time it's that we just don't have a method to sit down and negotiate. We don't have a way to say, hey, here's what we can afford. For all of us at home, we buy what we can afford, and we don't really have somebody telling us this is how much the cost will be. And we don't have that opportunity as a municipality in the county of Riverside, so.
You're speaking there specifically in regards to law enforcement.
Specifically in regards to law enforcement and where that contract is going and the growth that's there, and just the fact that it is, there's no way to forecast what it could be. It could be 2% next year, and you get excited thinking, oh yeah, let's forecast in our budget 2%, the following year it's 12%. There's no way to know what the county is going to encounter and what their growth is, it's everywhere, right? They've got to pass their liability on to us. They've got to pass their expenses on to us. They've got to pass, every time they have a contract negotiation and those rates go up for a deputy, they've got to pass that on to us. Same thing across the board. So there's just no way of knowing, and that's the single biggest concern in our expenditures.
So in my mind, what I'm getting is that we have kind of an uncomfortable risk on our revenue side from what I'm seeing with kind of the assaults on our income streams. The other side I see is uncomfortable risk on our expenditures that we really have almost no control of. And that's what I frighteningly see as a potential future. I don't like it, but I just want to, we are aware of it, but we can only do what we can do.
That's correct, Mayor.
I have a question. On the law enforcement for the proposed budget, do we have, because I know it's been kind of out there and not sure what it is, have we received the actual, what the increase is?
They
for
told
next
us to
year?
estimate 4%. So I took the actual 22, 23, projected the 23, 24, because we have like 9 months in, and then I took 4% of that number, 104%. So we're at 4% over last year.
When are we going to get the actual, or never?
That is a wonderful question.
Yeah. When the station was at
When we get the bill?
Riverside at Paris, we used to always get the budget from them in March or April, and they'd sit down with city manager, but we haven't seen that out of Lake Elsinore, so. Yeah. But yeah, we are subject to their negotiations, so it's not like, we have any control, so. And when if it's our biggest expenditure and you just go 4%, 4%'s a lot, so.
I have some questions, Mr. Mayor, unless Jennifer, you're not done yet. Councilwoman Dane? Please do.
Just a couple more points. I agree, that's my biggest concern too. I share that. And on some of the other things, I just want to thank you, Mr. City Manager, for really looking and trying to cut where we can. And because we are so limited in the revenue coming in, I think it's really important to really look at every little thing. And as we sit in our finance meetings and we look at line items of things, and it seems very nitpicky what we're doing, but that's what you have to do. So I appreciate the time for everybody taking to go through this and looking at it.
Okay, so I know last year we spoke about this idea of doing a 3 to 5 year projected budget. Where are we at with that?
Doing a 3-year budget?
Mhm.
What I can do for the council meeting, when we adopt the budgets, I can do a 5-year projection
Mhm.
and make it part of that staff meeting.
Okay.
Okay, based on our 24, 25 projected budget.
Yeah, and I know we did a little bit of that when
I
we
have
did-
done some projections, but they could be updated, so.
I think that would be, vital information, especially as we're continuing to make decisions financially on what to do and what not to do. I know that we talked a little bit about this when we looked at our goal settings for this upcoming year, and that's when we looked at the projections of where we'd be at
Right.
in 2028, which alarmed this entire council, right? I know that in that same conversation that we had last year in regards to looking at a 3 or 5 year projection path for a budget, we also made it a goal here on this dais to do all we can to have 100% in reserves. And right now, we're 1.3, almost $1.4 million short of that. Obviously, that's a tough goal for us to try to do, and it seems like all of our revenue streams continue to be under attack. I think for us, it would be imperative as we're looking at 3 and 5 year projections to really take into considerations our full investment, especially when it comes to our real estate properties too. I know for me, when we can look at what type of future bondable assets we have, that's going to be helpful when we're making decisions on whether or not we should continue to invest when things come up to buy or not. So I think just having that as an item in itself would be very helpful so we can get a real understanding of where we're at with all investments encompassing.
Sure.
If that's something that we can kind of push towards, because in the last 3 or 4 years, we've obtained an additional 2 to 3 parcels that I know have increased the ability for us to borrow money if we need to, or invest if we need to. So I think that needs to be part of this picture as well.
Yeah, we do have a line of credit at Citizens that we can access anytime, I think up to 3.5 million. But we do need a new appraisal on the 2 buildings that we purchased. So the fire station was just appraised.
Correct.
So, yeah.
The other question I have is some of the revenues in here, and I know you get to a point where you're just not going to put everything on the big picture of it, but do you know where we're at with our residential rental program and where that's at and the increases of it from start to now?
I had a
Because I know
sheet-
that in itself is a 6-figure operation.
I had a sheet when I left the office, but it didn't seem to make it here. But I have the history of that on one spreadsheet. Is it
Okay.
all right if I send it to you guys?
Yeah, that's fine. I just want to see the progression of that and from where it started, because I know that the numbers that I'm remembering is something between 60 and 70, and we finally got it up to 80 or 90, and now it's, as more people got involved, I know it grew, and I just wanted to see how that program's been doing with code enforcement, and just the involvement of that program.
Sure. In 21, 22, we had just under 50 grand in
Okay.
revenue. Dropped to 33,000 in 22, 23. We budgeted 50, and I think we're going to hit about 40 this year, so that's why this year's budget is 40.
So it's substantially lower than I thought. Okay.
Got to keep tracking them down until we get them all. So.
That's all I got right now.
Any other questions?
And so what we'll do is to take any suggestions that you guys have or the things you want to see changed, like Councilman Smith will add a 5-year projection. And then I can give you like the history of the revenues for everybody to see how they're growing and what percentage they've grown. Barring any direction, I think the next agenda is due soon, right, Cheryl? Right. So if you do have any changes, if you could work through city manager and let me know right away.
So if in the middle of the night I come up with an idea that I want more information, then I can call Aaron and say, Aaron, could you provide, could we get a slide on that?
I forward my phone to Terry at night, so it's fine.
Ring away, right?
And so I think soon, right? The next agenda? Okay. So, and I'll be out of town the 8th through the 12th, but I'll be back on the 12th for the meeting in Florida at a GFOA conference. So. And just want to thank the staff, the chief. Mike did almost every budget. Cheryl did her budget. Kayla helped with the finance budget. Just thank the staff that did a tremendous job. They all pretty much take ownership of their departments, and they work hard. So and now they know what's in their budgets.
And they were very patient with me as I sat down and said, but why, but why, but why? So I appreciate it.
He panicked me on like a 5:30 phone call, like, oh, that can't be right, because that changes everything. And then I realized that, okay, he's just not reading it right. Okay,
Yep.
good. So.
Terry, I'll say that, you've been doing this a long time, especially for the city of Canyon Lake, and you continue to see how we claw at ways to find money, because this is probably the most difficult city, not just to balance the budget, but to continue to increase revenues in a place where we get no tax revenue, in a place where we have no chance of having a Walmart or a Trader Joe's. And so I just want to say thank you for working with us on being as creative as possible, because it's not an easy challenge.
No.
I know your other municipality accounts that you work with are probably easier than us, but I just want to personally say thank you, because I know every budget workshop we have, we are literally trying to come up with new ways to not tax the residents, but to be creative with coming up with economic development for this community, and it is a hard challenge.
Very hard.
And we couldn't do it without your background, and more importantly, just the years that you've given us. So I want to say thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. And Aaron says I have to stay 5 more years.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of 5 years talk going on right now.
I appreciate that, and just make sure you thank the staff, because they've done a tremendous job.
Of course.
This was a,
Bill, could I ask just one question?
No.
And this is of
Yeah, go, if I can, that's all right. I'm allowed? Okay, yes, one more question.
You're rightly so, you're very concerned about the police thing going up. And it's unsustainable, going up the line, we talk 3 years from now, 5 years from now, it's going out of sight. Has the council discussed the possibility of starting our own police department?
I think I'm going to refer this to Jeremy. He's on the public safety. Oh,
So unfortunately, for those of that in the audience, due to the Brown Act, we're not allowed to have a dialogue with personnel in the audience, but afterwards, I'll tell you all about it.
and just anyone in here or outside, feel free, you can call the city manager, you can call one of us if you have any questions. We're here to help you with whatever answers we can give you. The Brown Act does kind of isolate us in little columns or silos where I wouldn't know as much about public safety as the Public Safety Committee. So a lot of times also, you really need to talk to somebody in the Public Safety Committee. But feel free to call us, and we'll try to give you some great direction, information. Okay, no further comment from the council? I'm missing some of our normal things, but this is a special meeting with limited items. Okay, no further
I
comment?
do have one, if you don't mind, because I know you're going to adjourn the meeting, right? I just want to adjourn, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, in the memory of Art Welch. Some of you might not know him, but he served on the City Council of Banning, and he was an institution through the past, an incredible human being who's given over 30 years of service, both on City Council, working for state legislators, working for a congressman. He passed away last week. I had the privilege of serving with him on RTA. So I would just say that, good man, and family's even better. So I just want to honor him tonight. Thank you.
Mayor, I do have. So we do have some upcoming schedule conflicts that have to do with the July meeting. I think we had planned to be dark in August, and then the September meeting. So I'll turn that over to Cheryl to try to figure out what best way to navigate this.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. So in looking at the next upcoming 3 months, it appears that we have some scheduling conflicts for our July meeting. Our city manager and city attorney will both be out of town for that meeting. We do anticipate going dark in August, and for September, that meeting unfortunately falls on September 11th. We know the POA and the city probably have some events going on, so we've got a conflict there. So we'd like to talk about some alternatives to those council meeting dates.
What's the first date you want us to look at?
So our July meeting would technically be July 10th, but if we could potentially look at maybe the 24th or the 31st for a regular city council meeting? Of July?
July what?
24th or
31st I can do,
31st?
24th I'll be out of town.
31st?
I'm good. July 31st, I'm good.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and make that change. We'll have our regular meeting on July 31st as opposed to the 10th of July.
Okay.
We still anticipate being dark in August, and for September, if we want to move a day ahead or a day after September 11th?
Like the 10th?
Or the next week?
We can't, we have a city attorney that has to be in flipping India.
I'm happy to.
No, it's okay.
September 4th?
September 4th to 5th?
What about the 3rd?
Okay.
The 3rd.
Third?
Does the 3rd work for
September
you? Does the 3rd work for this group?
Yes.
September
Looks like,
3rd?
yeah. Will be a
Okay.
little conflict with the POA, but we've done that before.
That
so.
does, yeah.
We-
We go with
It's
that?
not, Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, then for September, we will hold our regular meeting on the 3rd as opposed to the 11th.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Can you send out an invite tomorrow so it
We'll get
updates
those on
all,
the
everybody's
calendar.
calendars and,
Love it.
Thank you.
and,
And we'll be bringing something in June to record this?
Yeah,
Okay.
City Attorney, you want us to bring a resolution in June just to have City Council bless those changes?
Yes, so we can change our regular meeting days by reso, so we'll be bringing an update to our current schedule resolution at the next meeting.
okay. All right, is everybody good? Nothing else to be handled or addressed today? All right, let's call for the adjournment. We don't need to take a motion, right? Just an adjournment. We're just going to adjourn at 7:07. Thank you all. What a productive meeting.